You today is Monday, the 11th of May 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my live stream all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. And we are starting today right away into the advisory board operating system because today we are going to talk about the top quadrant, which is scaling under the commercial acceleration. And here's something interesting I want to mention to you. This matters because many companies do not fail at scale because the lack of ambition. They fail because the board or the executive team or yourself as a founder see the quality of growth early enough. What I mean is because it's not because of the lack of ambition. What I'm trying to say is because the quality of the growth is not there early enough. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not about ambition, it's the quality of it. And let me show you something that is very, very real. And this is a Business Development Bank of Canada, or the Bank of Development Business of Canada. It's a study that they did. And they found that businesses with advisory boards had an average annual sales of 24% higher than businesses that don't have an advisory board, right? And also they found that the productivity is 18% higher. I also found that sales on this particular business, they grew from 23% in average in a period of 3 years. But the business with advisory boards had created a 67% increase in these same 3 years in terms of the business compared with having advisory boards and the business that don't have an advisory board. So what is a remarkable thing about this story is that actually it's not something that somebody told me that, no, this is a full investment bank and business development bank that did and took the time to investigate how exactly an advisory board will make a difference to the company and what an advisory board will not make a difference in the business if you don't have an advisory board. So this is I think it's a key story because the lessons are applicable to any business because they are business principles. The things that are mentioned in the study are very clear and very specific, and I'm going to share them with you. So you don't have to go and read the whole thing, but I'm going to highlight a few things actually probably will be interesting. So you say, so that's why an advisory board is an interesting idea to put in place. So because these companies had better challenges and better expertise and better rhythm, and that changed how companies made the growth decisions. And these are things that three things actually make a better understanding why the advisory board had these remarkable outcomes compared to the companies that didn't have one. So, and I mention again, they have better challenges, they have better expertise around the table, and they have a better rhythm, a cadence. I always talk about in governance and compliance, the cadence, the calendar, what we have to do this month, this quarter, this half year, by the end of next year, how we prepare, how we're relevant ourselves as an organization for the next 3 or 4 years down the road, right? And this is how I work. Instead of hiring one senior executive and hoping they cover every gap, I assembled an international advisory board around the milestones in front of you. And I say, this is how I work, because before I found the study, actually, I started to do exactly the same thing. And now I have very, very good evidence that this is the way to go. So why that works, and also the study supports us. You get specialist capability faster without the big consulting overhead, without the talent locked in and the capacity to swap members when you need new talent, new expertise, and drive as a company evolves. Because actually, remember, as if the model that we have in front of us, business is happening, everything everywhere at the same time. And time is a key because many business, many boards, and many executive things that is a linear process, right? So what will happen next? But actually, what happened next is influence for all the things around in your business and the ecosystem and the environment, right? So you have your brand, your people, your partnerships, your revenue, your strategies, your performances, your governance risk compliance, your assets in terms of IPs, intellectual properties, royalties, etc., etc. So everything is happening at the same time, even if you don't see that happening at the same time. And this is also something that found a study that many companies believe or feels is not in the emotion point, is actually they experience that is a solo effort, even if you have an executive team, because executive teams seems to have the leaderships in each of the departments. And I'm talking companies between 50 employees to 250 employees here. I'm not talking about very large organizations. These directors, these vice presidents, you name it, in these organizations, they feel that they are doing a solo effort, right? Because it seems actually everything is on them or on her when they are working on their specific line of business, and the whole picture seems to be missed. Now, um, let me take you through three problems that have been identified and other views from different parts of the world. And I like to take the example of the UK too, because this is very good. And you start to compare that actually, that's why I mentioned business principles, because what you see in these reports or this story from the Bank of Canada, also you see stories from EY, the Office of National Statistics in the UK, you start to see that actually there are things that are very close. So is this about specific companies? No, these can be things that you can apply to your own company, regardless of geography, jurisdictions, and company size, because they are, as mentioned, business principles. So, problem number one is a full scale. And also, this is mentioned in both studies. Revenue rises, but margin quality, customer concentration, delivery capacity remain unclear. And also, EY in the UK listed one. This is also a big issue with the public listed companies. Actually, EY listed companies that issues 240 profit warnings in 2025. So that tells you that the market is still punishing weak visibility, meaning that actually, even if you have a public listed company in a very international hub like the UK, you still have profit warnings because actually what's going on, right? So here is the static thinking, the thing that you need to have, how you put more cognitive diversity, thinking, how people think differently in different geography, in different places. Well, with an international advisory board, you can get that difference, so you can reach out these 24% revenue increases and 18% productivity. Now, the second problem is a weak productivity, as I mentioned. And this is one thing that grabbed my attention, because I thought, I say, why 18% productivity increase with an advisory board? Because actually, the Office of National Statistics in the UK already reported that the output in productivity decreased in 2025 compared to 2024. So growth is not enough. And the boards, the executive teams, and you yourself as a founder, you need proof that growth converts into better output, right? So you need proof of that. So hiring more people in reality doesn't make a better productivity. And we are not going to go deeper into why this is a reason, or why are established the reasons of that lack of not lack of productivity, decrease in productivity. But this is a problem, the weak productivity. But an international advisory board now is supporting an increase in productivity. So this is absolutely fantastic good news, because then you say, well, while the average, and this is for national statistic report, while the average is falling in terms of productivity, then with an advisory board, you have the capacity to increase that productivity and beat the decrease, right? So while the things are decreasing 1%, you might have a capacity to increase by almost 18% of productivity. The third thing, or the third problem, is the expertise delay. And as I mentioned, and I always mention, and also supported now with this study from the Development Business or the Business Development Bank of Canada, says that leaders establish advisory boards to gain complementary expertise and decision support, right? Complementary expertise and decision support. So it's not that you are not running the business right. It's not that you don't have, or you're lacking ideas or resources, is to complementary expertise and decision support. So it's not stepping on your toes. is complementary and decision support. So you have a better way to do things, and actually with a sounding board and probably an extended network and connections and expertise and references that you didn't have before. So it doesn't everything fall on you. You have now a group of people and an international advisory board that is helping on that. So that is a point. So scales problems rarely wait for a 12-month hiring cycle. So when you are looking, and this is a problem because many organizations are looking and say, we need somebody that actually really help us to break through, right? And that takes too long because first, you had to find this particular talent and expertise in the market. Second, probably they are very busy because everybody wants them. And third, if you manage to find the right expertise of talent, the time lapse until this person eventually is hired and agreed to work with your organization, you lost 12 months of capacity to do things, right? Or to confirm things or to activate certain projects and plans. So they are scaling, so you're is delayed for 12 months thinking that somebody's going to come. But an international advisory board that I put together, we can put together a very good panel of experts in a less than 2 weeks, and then we can rotate the teams as the progress we made it requires a different talent and processes. So, in other words, imagine that scaling is like adding lanes to the motorway, right? So, if your signs, your exit, and your traffic controls are weak, adding more lanes only create faster congestions, more accidents, and more problems that actually benefit, right? Plus all the construction process that goes associated with this. So I don't know if you experience that disruption of just one lane close because they are doing maintenance, because they are doing repairs, because they are doing something happened, and see how the lane you go into the 4 or 5 lanes and then go into 3 or 4, and you see how disruptive and how annoying is to having these kind of circumstances when you are in a motorway, right? So imagine that this is happening in your organization for 12 months until you find the person that actually can help you. But with a team of people, you can decongest all these things very fast and move faster. So how do you scale without guessing then or over hiring or letting the board or your executive team or yourself, your plan become a comfort blanket, right? So this is why this is happening and where you get stuck because this is a big plan, but actually get stuck somewhere. So the executive teams or yourself or the boards that get stuck is because they confuse activity with acceleration, right? This is one of the first things that you feel like, what's going on? So more sales goals, more partnerships, more channels, but nobody asks which growth is repeatable, which is profitable, and which is to safe to continue or discontinue, right? The second thing that the teams feel where they get stuck is because the advisory boards is treated as a meeting rather than a system, given that you have an advisory board, right? So is let's meet with the board, report back, great, keep going, and nothing else. That's not a system that challenge you, as I mentioned, that challenge you, that brings new ideas, that confirm things or support you. But the Business Development Bank of Canada demonstrated that leaders can become isolated, like as I mentioned, as a one-man band. So the advisory board gives the leader a sounding board and forces better preparation, right? So that is why, with an advisory board, these reports came as a 24% revenue growth and increased productivity by 18%. When you don't treat that as another meeting that I have this month, it's like we agreed that I'm going to do this. They provide a certain step and process and system like the one we have in the screen. And where is the 18? And here's the key. The 18 business outcomes that have to be produced to achieve this 24% revenue growth and 18% productivity. So if you don't have very clear which are your business outcomes and how you're going to get there, and the advisory board is supporting you and giving challenges and giving the expertise or connections or um, experience how to do that, then you get stuck because it's another meeting that you have in a month. The third thing that you get stuck is because they start or you start with people rather than milestones, right? So having a flashy name in the advisor, and this happened to me last week, by the way. We came across an organization that they have people that you saw the names and their track record, and you were, whoa. So what I can say, so excellent, go and get it, right? Because actually there's nothing else to do there. So the pedigree, the quality, the track record of these people in this organization were like a par to none. But why they felt stuck? Why they felt that they were no going nowhere? First, because actually having a big names in your advisory board or your non-executive board doesn't mean that you're going to achieve what you have to achieve, right? That is a board signal. So the question is not whether to change. The question is which capability to bring first, right? So is you have to be careful who you bring to the table too. It's good to have big names, but actually at the same time, which are the talents that you need to progress your business to make it happen. So the question will be more that what will change if your board had the right commercial experts around the table before the next growth decision land, right? So having the right commercial expert, the right distribution expert, the right taxes, the jurisdiction expert, etc., etc. So rather than a big flashy name, is good for the morale, but actually, and feel comfy because actually you have, well, we have all these people that is amazing. Yes, fantastic. Remember one thing too. If you are not matching and mirroring your current state with an advisory board that is at least 1 or 3 steps ahead of you, what you're going to achieve is a massive gap between a massive pedigree name in your advisory board and your current state. So what happened with that gap? Air. You don't have traction, unfortunately, because their mind, their expertise, their network is so far ahead of your current position that is a big challenge to marry that thing. And that's where many of the companies fail because actually they are stuck in big name, but operationally it's very hard to match that. Or their focus is focused on the wrong things. So this is a case actually also a company that was doing very well. They have, I think, 25 employees and 6 million revenue. And they brought an expert, an HR expert. That this person was very good. He's a brilliant HR expert in a large corporation for a company of 25 employees. And they delayed for 6 months creating a very strong operating system for HR and a lot of funds too, because they need consulting, they need advisors, they put everything together, they hire some people, etc., etc. Guess what happened after 6 months? They realized that that was the very wrong thing to do because everybody named everybody in the company. There were only 25 employees, and the current 3 pages processes that they have with HR were perfectly fine for the organization that they had. So those 6 months of activity, documenting it, I think it was a 200 pages operation procedure for HR of a company of 25 people was an overkill, regardless of the expenditures of those activities to get that manual, right? Now, what are the practical moves then? What an advisory board does at this stage? And let me show you 3 things actually can be very practical at this moment. So build a scale map. So the advisory board should pressure test the top 5 growth assumptions, the strongest customer segments, the weakest margins, and the biggest delivery constraints, right? So that's your scale map. The second, match members to the commercial gap. If the issue is channel growth, the International Advisory Board bring in partnership expertise. If the issue is margin leakage, the International Advisory Board brings in pricing and revenue quality expertise. And if the issue is market story, the International Advisory Board brings in brand and positioning expertise. So that creates a board level rhythm. So every month, the advisory board should answer one question. What is making growth more predictable and what is making it more fragile? So with that, you really have milestones, business milestones, to go to the next month with a very clear way to process things and activate process produce activities and to achieve those business goals. So it's not about another meeting in a month and say, have you done? Well done, keep going. Now, if you are an executive team or part of the executive team, you're a founder or you are a non-executive director in an organization and you want to understand better how an international advisory board can make growth more predictable, let's have a 30-minute chat so I can understand where you're coming from, where you are today, what you want to achieve, and how an international advisory board can help you to get there. So let's pause here for today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow I will move from scale to predictability on the right hand side. And that will show why, and I will show you why growth often breaks when the capital table before it breaks in the market. What I mean is actually when you don't have that predictability, or you're not, the company cannot demonstrate predictability enough to raise capital to grow. Right? Excellent. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a